All right, so it's time now to cut the side windows into the side of the windshield. So both of the sides of the windshield, the metal frame has been actually fitted into place. You saw that whole process, and now we've got all of that done, ready to go. So the next step, cut the hole and mount the plexiglass in there. And so what I've done is, this is the actual piece that I've removed that was on there. If you remember, this actually bent like that and went down, and this is actually where the window goes. So what I've done here is on the inside of it, I traced the line. And that is exactly where the hat sections go. So I know where I'm going to work with, because that's actually the edge of the window. The window is going to go beyond that, and then it's going to be sandwiched in between the hat sections and the actual frame of the windshield. So I take this template that you can see here, which I made by tracing from what was given by Titan. And then from the inside of this, what I've actually done is drawn, as I mentioned, where those lines are. So you can really see it with the reflection, you can just barely see it. But there's a line going straight down here, and there's a line going straight down here, which is a little bit of an arch. What I did with that, maybe if I turn this at a bit of an angle, you can see it. What I did with that is actually, you can see here, I've actually traced the outline as it goes of the what's going to become the window, and that was done by putting this piece on here, lining it up with what's available in terms of the space after you have those frames in place, tracing it, and now it's time to cut it. So we'll cut it and then we will oversize cut the plexiglass itself so that it can get sandwiched. You'll see that whole process, and at the end of this we'll have our first window in our T-51 Mustang build. As with any cutout, I'm going to start by drilling out the radiuses at the corners, and then I can make the rest of it connect. And so I've traced a couple holes on here. I'm going to use that to actually to work out to my radiuses. I'm going to start with a small hole, and then I'm going to work it out with the step drill until I get exactly to where those edges are, and then I should be able to just do a cut along those lines. Okay, so what I've done is I now have 3 holes that basically make a triangle here that allow me to then cut the lines in here and have some relief when I get to that and not worry about making those tight turns. There you have it. That is the first window cut in our T-51D Mustang. And I'll show you where that's going to go. It's going to go right there. How cool is that? All right, let's get to work on the next steps so we can actually mount the plexiglass in it. All right, so now that the windshield frame is done all the way around, it's time for us to go and actually cut the plexiglass and get that fitted. That's going to go into each of the 3 locations here around the windshield. Now, what I've done in order to fit this is I've gone and I've taken just regular, this is just paper, poster board, and I've sandwiched it in so that I can then go and trace around and put those markings on. So let's do that. I'm just very, very simple. I'm just going to go and trace this line down and over and back up. Okay, that's gone and taken care of the center one. I'll do the sides afterwards. Now the other thing is I'm going to have to size the plexiglass larger than this opening, and so I'll go and mark where these rivet holes are going to be, because it's important that I go beyond the rivet holes by a decent amount. That's going to prevent cracking happening that actually would emanate, cracks would emanate directly from those rivet holes. And so put a few of these in, go around. And of course, I don't care right now, I'm not going to like pre-drill these or anything. I'm going to drill it in place when I actually sandwich it in. This will just be a good guide as to where those rivet holes roughly are, so I make sure that I have enough of that buffer we talked about in there going around that perimeter. And I'm also going to mark on this out, so I know that's the outside. Now, the other thing that we have to take into consideration here is going to be the hat section and the supports here. There are tubes that go down here for support in the windshield, one here on the right, another one on the left, another one that comes down the bow. And what happens is that you have in the design this hat section, which the tube is in the center of, and then this skin, this windshield frame, goes over it. And in there you've got that kind of like tube-like structure there that that it sits in. And there's silicone that goes in there to kind of hold it into place, but ultimately it's sized for that tube. Now when we put plexiglass in, if we just put it where the ears are of this hat section, like we bring plexiglass up here, we bring plexiglass over here, well then the hat section ends up getting backed away, and that leaves a larger area for that tube, and it's really not holding the tube anymore at that point. So we have two choices. One is to take and extend the plexiglass across so that you have that, and I'll show you what a stack up of that would look like, so that you have the same. So if the plexiglass is going across there and you have the frame on the outside and you have the hat section on the inside, well now you still have the same square space that would hold the tube in place. The other option there is if you end the plexiglass before you get there, well then you have to actually go and put something in as a backer into the hat section itself. And we could simply cut a strip of plexiglass and lay it in there, and then that in itself would take up that space and move that forward. So there's a couple different things to consider. If we just take the plexiglass and keep it all the way across and all the way around, well, we don't have to do anything else inside the hat section. But at the same time, when it's time to replace the glass, that just means that once we remove this, we're going to have to pry the glass out because it's sandwiched between the tube and the frame. And that makes it a little more difficult to deal with. At the same time, I like having extra distance of plexiglass going a little further in there. And so I think what we're going to do is kind of a combination of both. What I'm going to take as an approach to this is I'm going to make sure that the windshield has the plexi sized large enough to make sure there's a good buffer in here. It may not go all the way to the seam and the bend. It may not go all the way across, so it's easy to remove later. And then when I fit the pieces of hat section back up, I'm going to see how tight a fit is it on that tube. And if it needs anything extra, then I'm going to fill that, and I'm going to fill it with either some type of a material like a neoprene that'll hold up, or a piece of plexiglass that'll take exactly the same distance. Whatever approach I'm going to take, I can just lay that in as necessary, and that's just done at the moment of final riveting and setting everything into place. So it's an easy thing to do. It's not really a problem, and that's how we're going to approach it. So this tracing's been done. I'm going to take this out, and then it's easy to take off these sides and actually trace those separately onto the plexiglass itself, and then again make it wider. So time to cut some plexiglass. All right, so what I'm going to try now is I'm going to see how it works to use the shear to cut the Lexan. Now, just a point here, I've been referring to this kind of loosely as plexiglass, but it is Lexan that we actually use, and that's because of its durability, the fact it won't crack. It's such a strong material to use as a windscreen. It is actually Lexan that we're using. So let's take a look and see what it's like to cut this on our shear. I'll start by just taking a test corner piece and see what that does. So I just tried shearing it and that worked out really well. It's actually a really clean cut, so I'll try the shear for this and see how it goes. All right, so out of our living room, which is our aircraft workshop, down here into the basement, the kind of general and woodworking shop, and I'm going to do some airplane building down here. I have taken with this Lexan and put the traced the window opening here, which you can kind of barely see. It's this black line in here, and then I put a blue line outside of that. That is a 1-inch perimeter outside. Now, of course, we need a 1-inch perimeter outside so that we can actually rivet that into the frame going around. So I'm going to use this jigsaw right here to actually go and do the cut, and we'll see. I've run some test cuts. It looks like it'll work out okay. Might have to do several cuts just because of the size of this, but let's see how it goes. All right, so there you go. We now have one of our windows all cut out, as you can see there. We're going to leave, of course, the protective material, the protective coating that's on the front and the back of the window, and we're going to go get this actually fitted. So one more to go, and then we can get these actually installed in our T-51D Mustang. All right, so I got the center windshield piece fit, and then I removed that so I could do some sizing between where the line ended for that and where the line began for the side windows. I've got the side windows now, those frames all set, and even the holes drilled around the perimeter. And now I can start setting the side windows into place. So I'm going to remount the front window in place, and then I can push the side windows in until they meet, until that seam, they meet at that seam, which is pretty much where this bar is, and get those drilled, and then essentially I'll be wrapping it into place. So here we go with the next step. All right, so we now have the front windshield and the right-hand side windshield in place. Amazing how strong this is. I mean, once you have this locked in, it is rock solid. Crazy. So I put in all the Clecos just to see how strong it really is and what it's going to hold up. And even that isn't its total strength, because once the side skins go on, then it gets even stronger. So just got to do the other side and then I'm all done. All right, so there you go. Another key building stage done of SocialFlight's T-51D Mustang. It is so cool to see the windshield now in place. It's like, boom, rock solid. Very, very cool to see all of this. So of course, all this is preliminary placed. We'll eventually get to the point that we enlarge all these holes, do the final assembly, get it all permanently put into place. Now, one of the nice things is that we're not going to actually seal this and glue it. We're going to actually put it in place in a way that it's easy for us to replace this glass in the future, because of course, these types of windscreens do actually get scratched, and so we'll want to have the ability of replacing it in the future. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon for SocialFlight. Be sure to check out SocialFlight.com and the free SocialFlight mobile apps for Apple and Android devices. Tens of thousands of aviation events, destinations, so many cool places to fly, and tons of online events, education, and webinars as well. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon. Blue skies.